Welcome to the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast, where we talk with entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders at B2B services, tech, and SaaS companies to learn the systems and processes they've used to create success for their business. We'll also learn from marketing and sales experts to provide insights to help you grow your business. I'm your host, Mark Osborne, and the podcast is brought to you by Modern Revenue Strategies and their 10x ROI B2B growth guarantee. Schedule a free diagnostic call to learn the fastest path to double your B2B revenues in just 90 days. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Mark Osborne, and today I'm very excited to welcome my guest, Ben Carden. Now, Ben is the co-founder and chief revenue officer of Revenue Flow. Now, they are an AI native go-to-market partner that builds autonomous pipeline systems for B2B companies. Essentially, AI agents running the full funnel from signal to close without a traditional SDR layer. Before Revenue Flow, Ben built his commercial foundation at Gartner and earned his degree from London School of Economics. Today, he and his co-founders operate deeply embedded revenue engines across a portfolio of clients shipping custom workflows in 24 to 72-hour cycles. What sets Ben apart is how he puts skin in the game. Revenue Flow backs its work with a 90-day profitable pipeline guarantee. If they miss the agreed sales qualified meeting targets, they keep working for free until they hit them. Beyond the company, Ben hosts the Go-to-Market Playroom podcasts and convenes the CRO Roundtable, a hand-picked group of top fractional CROs comparing notes on what actually drives revenue in the AI era. So Ben, welcome to the show.
Mark, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I've been looking forward to this conversation. We had a chance to catch up a couple weeks ago on that podcast. But before we jump into some of the topics that we've got planned, why don't you give our audience a little bit of background? Like, tell them the story of sort of the opportunity you saw in the market with Revenue Flow, or sort of what led you to what you're doing today.
Yeah, great question, Mark. I started my career in 2022 as an SDR, hitting the phones, booking meetings for an account executive in an enterprise function at a pretty big American company called Gartner. Worked my way up
Yeah.
pretty quickly and became an enterprise account manager, managing a multi-seven-figure book of business. Realized that the corporate life was great. I was kind of missing a bit of kind of creativity and had a personal passion to go travel and to go surfing around Indonesia. So I did that in 2024, came back early 2025 and joined my brother's business, which was a content agency at the time, and stumbled upon Clay, which had completely revolutionized it for me.
Yeah.
It blew my mind away. What it could do, the features it could do, the way it could update a spreadsheet so quickly showed me like how AI was completely transforming go-to-market. Long story short, we ended up transforming my brother's content agency and spinning it off into Revenue Flow, what it is today, which is ultimately building AI native lead generation systems for organizations. And nowadays we work with around 20 clients from publicly listed CEOs looking to gain investor interest to kind of more mid-market businesses looking to go after larger terms. So we build a range of pipeline motions from helping companies generate more kind of marketing qualified leads, more sales qualified leads. A lot of clients work on a kind of more bespoke capacity where we kind of build revenue engines and different systems for them as well. So that's a long story short and how we got to where we are today.
That's great. So I'm going to play a little bit of devil's avocado, as I like to say. There's a lot of folks in the space that would say, well, I just can't trust an automated outreach. We have such a high value, service that we sell, and our clients expect, such deep attention. I can't outsource these kind of touches to not a human. Even I can't even outsource them to another human that isn't, of a really high caliber. What's how do you sort of attest to that? How do you, sort of counter that? And what are some of the sort of new enhancements that you're seeing that are enabling AI to do things that we used to only sort of trust to humans?
Yeah, really great question and something we hear all the time.
Yeah.
I want to reply to that with a bit of with something I mention all the time, and it's a thought, an idea that comes out of YC, which There are two types of work that a salesperson could be doing. There's what we call intelligence-based work, which is, operational and quite intensive, building a lead list, writing a message, scanning websites for signals, doing research on prospects. And then there is what you call judgment-based work, having a conversation with a prospect, knowing when to push, pull back on a deal, knowing which markets to go after, knowing how to, go to a dinner with a prospect. The judgment-based work is the higher leverage work, which a prospect, which your salespeople should really be focusing on. And so the way we see it is, how can we get rid of all this intelligence-based stuff, building out lead lists, creating messages, doing the research, which is all very manual, low leverage, and isn't really going to generate pipeline. And how do we actually enable the sales rep to do the most high value things? So if you have a very kind of high ACV trust-based sale, imagine you're selling into global pharma or, Microsoft. You don't want to be sending out random automated messages, but imagine you're going to a conference, and typically salespeople would build a lead list, arrange meetings, do that. That stuff is quite low leverage. And that's where we would come in and do all of the kind of scraping of the attendee list, setting up the meetings so that the salesperson can actually do what they do best, which is preparing for those meetings and actually going to those meetings at the conference prepared. And so, yeah, that's basically how we see it. Minimizing intelligence-based work and increasing human-based work. And maybe the tagline would be kind of automating the mundane so you can kind of augment the humane, is what we would say.
That's great. Well, and you call out something that I think is really vital there, which is, there's a couple sort of concepts here. One is the best way to ruin a bad product is good advertising. I don't know if you've ever heard that phrase, but essentially, like if your fundamental product is broken, getting it out to lots of people is the best way to really find out that it's broken. And one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of companies that complain about, oh, I tried using an automated tool or an SDO, an automated SDR, and it didn't work. The reason it didn't work is because their fundamental process was broken. So adding a tool on a broken process just led to revealing how broken their process was. It wasn't that the tool or that particular function wasn't actually working well. It's that they didn't have the process. And so the thing that it occurs to me is by removing some of that mundane, you create the opportunity for more humane decisions around the strategy that should be driving the process, and then the underlying process itself. So you can then layer in a technology to go do some of those cycles.
Yeah, I think that's precisely it. People think that, AI-based outbound is a silver bullet. It definitely isn't. The most important thing is your offer. How actually good
Right.
is you can, what we see, you could email blast a random list with the best offer in the world. You're going to get a way better response rate than creating the most AI personalized email mentioning you went to X, Y, and Z university. So we focus a lot on that, on the offer piece. And secondly, as you say, we actually only work with clients who have an established funnel in place. Where we see it is like driving traffic to a funnel that already works. If they don't have a funnel, they don't have a sales process in place, they don't have a good product, they don't know how to close leads, then we don't work with clients that way. So we actually have to turn away a lot of clients whose offers don't work, one, and whose sales processes are ineffective.
Yeah, and that makes tons of sense for you because otherwise you're sort of running around chasing them down, trying to, sort of make them successful when they sort of haven't done that basic blocking and tackling. So you mentioned up front that, sort of what was the door opener to this was seeing what Clay could do. And for a lot of, companies that was sort of like the gateway drug to doing more and more AI enabled processes in the go-to-market space. But a lot of companies sort of struggle with, well, I know how to use Clay, or at least I've done some things with Clay that are pretty powerful and pretty cool. There's all these other things that I kind of want to do. I want to, build some agents that will sort of run for me in Claude, and uh, you know, I keep hearing about N8N and Make and how should I really sort of approach these things? And so a lot of companies are sort of struggling with this idea of, you know, buy or build. Like, should I go out and buy solutions or should I build them myself? If I'm buying them, should I be looking to buy suites or should I be looking to buy, sort of point solutions? how do you advise companies in thinking about knowing that you've got a particular point of view because you do have an offering in this space, but I'm just curious about how you would advise people to think through that calculus and that decision making.
Mm. It's a great question, and I suppose in terms of our offering, we kind of accommodate to a variety of different clients and what they want. But it really depends on two things, really, the two C's: capability and capacity, right? So if clients have the capabilities, the know-how, technical skill set of how to build systems, and they actually have the manpower internally to go out and build it, then we actually, advise clients to go out and build it because it's much better to have something that you own internally, what we call an intelligence layer. Jack Dorsey talks about this a lot, which is basically a GitHub repo of a bunch of empty files, which basically
Yeah.
is an asset that that company owns. We have our intelligence system, which is our accumulation of 18 months and thousands of campaigns that we've run. We advise clients if they have the capability and the capacity to build it, they should go out and do it. And we have an advisory program to kind of help clients with a set number of hours that we work with them on. But if clients are thinking, they're more SMB, more mid-market, they don't want to spend $300,000 on a GTM engineer. They don't want to buy all these different tools. They don't want the risk of actually trying a tool, paying for it, and it not working. Then we'd advise them to bring someone on, because the risk of actually bringing an agency on, because you can fire them very quickly, you can get rid of them.
Yeah.
There's normally outcome-based KPIs attached to a contract, so you've got some sort of risk reversal there. Whereas bringing on board an SDR or a hire is a bit riskier. So it depends on capability, capacity, and what the organization is looking to achieve, really.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great framework for thinking about it. And what the thing that I've always seen as sort of new technologies emerge is that there tends to be sort of the cycle that I see is sort of point solutions usually wind up being sort of the best solution to start. And like you have a particular point solution on sort of replacing SDR activities versus like a comprehensive suite of all of your automation all in one place, all of your, a generative AI all in one place. What I typically see is in the early stages, those suite solutions aren't as good that, sort of like a Swiss Army knife that sucks at 10 things and isn't really good at one of them. Whereas in the early stages, those individual point solutions can be really good and cutting edge, but then you have to sort of manage it internally. Are you seeing that much in the space today?
Yeah, I mean, we much prefer the point solution approach rather than a suite solution, because there's so just in the if you think about the execution layer of lead generation, you've got a lot of components. You've got you've got finding leads, you've got enriching leads, you've got validating leads, you've got the sequencers, and then you've got kind of reply management. And we've seen companies try and do all of those into one, but it always ends up being a little bit average and a little bit
Yeah.
not quite what you're looking for. If you compare, email bison, which is a sequencer, to instantly, we see massive differences based off those two sequencers there. And it's instantly to Smartly. There's also a lot of differences. And Smartly is a $30 million company, and
All
it's
right.
and it's not as good as email bison from our perspective. So if a $30 million company is struggling with one tiny part of the outbound process, then how can one company do all of it? Similarly, we use Million Verify to kind of validate emails, which is works really, really well, but they're really, really good at that. And so we often think about how can you get the best outcome at the best rate, and Suite Solutions in AI lead generation is we advise against that. You'd rather kind of
Yeah.
in SaaS tools and build your own thing.
Yeah, I mean, that makes tons of sense and certainly aligns with what we've seen, as other technology revolutions, if you will, have, sort of taken over, whether it was, you know, pay-per-click optimization or other things like that. The ones that sort of claim to do everything, usually wound up being, sort of lame at multiple of them. So you spend a lot of time at, sort of like the leading edge of what's happening in, with people using artificial intelligence and automation for go-to-market motions. Even the things that I think about like a year ago um, that were kind of cutting edge are now sort of like just de rigueur, and everyone does them. what are some of the things that you're seeing that maybe today seem cutting edge, but a year from now, everyone will be doing them? And then do you have any crystal ball of hypothesis of where this is going? Like, what are some of the things that might, really surprise folks 18 months from now? And then what are some of the things that are becoming, if you just want to even say that you're a best in class operator, you need to really be, solving for these things.
Hmm. Interesting. I think but my answer, and I'll start with the kind of crystal ball answer first, and where I see
Sure.
things, and then I'll go into like what looks fancy now is going to change in the future. But I think my hypothesis is that the last role in a commercial organization to be replaced by AI is the enterprise account executive role, because
Okay.
it's extremely complex role which requires navigating and managing a lot of stakeholders within an organization.
Yeah.
And you're a buyer looking to buy, $500,000, $1 million solution, you're probably not going to want to speak to just one agent. And so
Yeah.
that you can actually connect everyone and manage all of those different roles and different outcomes, different expectations is going to be the last to stay. Right now, I think, but you think about an SMB account executive selling, low ticket deals. There's not much complications. You've got one key decision maker. I think that will be today. You haven't got the best SMB AI AE, sorry, but I think you will actually start seeing better and better outcomes and better AI agents who can actually, ask a lot of questions, can actually just filter whether it's a good buy or not. So we haven't actually seen the best offers in the market yet, but we are seeing things progressing. And I think in 18 months, if you've got an ACV of $15,000, an annual contract value of $15,000, you should probably get an AI agent to actually to manage that for you. And the bigger the deal size, the more that's actually going to land on humans, which is interesting because normally as a sales rep, you start selling smaller deals and then end up being an enterprise account manager, so an account executive. So we'll have to rethink of the whole sales progression, sales career as that transition happens. But we're not there yet. That's definitely where the sales world is heading.
Interesting. So that's likely what's going to impact the sales role. Are there sort of technology enhancements that are, really going to surprise people or, sort of raise their eyes? And I'll give an example just to sort of set the stage. Um, a lot of the sort of baked in generative messaging is kind of craptacular. But I have seen some really great workflows where people will use, an AI engine to go out and research the person and then put that into a table and then research the company and put that into a table and research some competitors and put that into a table and then train a generative engine to reference, multiple things within a table to
Mm.
then really come up with one sentence of sort of customization that is sort of low risk, like it's not overly provocative, but it feels really natural and feels really in situ and like in context of yeah, this is something this person's likely thinking about and interested in, and it's said in a really normal and natural way because it built all that context first, and then it used that context to create, a simplified line, and it wasn't overly ambitious. It didn't sort of try to write a paragraph or try to get at their childhood dreams. And so, some of those workflows I've seen have been much more natural and human than I would have thought they would be, even like 3 months ago. Are you seeing any, sort of innovative applications like that, or are there some things that you think are coming from down the road that we haven't thought about yet?
Just to make sure I understand your question, Mark, are you talking in the context of lead generation or more in like the actual sales process and having actually speaking to a seller or anything?
I'll say from anywhere. Like, are there things even that maybe aren't as directly applicable to the work that you do, but that you've seen as are sort of working on the cutting edge, or that you've, sort of seen other entrepreneurs working on?
Hmm. It's a great question. I think something that we've seen recently a lot is enrichment costs can get quite expensive,
Okay.
and organizations are relying on these very, very expensive data providers to actually, verify their agents,
Mhm.
to kind of verify this data. And data is probably the biggest moat, and it's very, very expensive. But recently, with Codex releasing its sub-agents, you can basically get almost between 10 and 20 sub-agents who go out, scan the internet, and look for all of these different data points. And you can actually get your data at like a fraction of the cost, like 2% of the cost of what you'd pay for a data provider before. So as these kind of sub-agents, as Codex, as OpenAI and Anthropic start releasing these sub-agent modalities and features, you'll actually be able to get data at a fraction of the cost as before. And that's the biggest cost center for organizations. So that's going to enable organizations to do a lot more with less and enable kind of leaner teams such as ourselves to build out pretty compelling solutions and offer them at a fraction of the price. So I think the impact on cost is going to be pretty significant there. And yeah, that's I hope that's answered your question there.
Yeah, it does. And so to sort of say that back, you know, a lot of, and, everyone knows the phrase garbage in, garbage out. And so if you think about a process that's relying on technology to make decisions based on data, a lot of companies think, well, I want the best, most, richest data set that I can get. And what you're saying is that historically that has been a real blocker to companies that couldn't afford those big data sets. And even, potentially a competitive advantage that you had access to a large, rich, authoritative data set. But you're saying that some of the tools are actually able to go out and replicate that same high quality data themselves without having to license it from an external third party data provider. The tool itself can build that data set as part of the process and do it at a rate that's much lower than it would cost to sort of license that data. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's precisely it. And a clear example is in the context of lead generation, for example, when you're looking for emails, you might previously have to rely on these very expensive data providers. Now with Codex subagents, you can get you can look for any kind of the agent can trawl the web and find anywhere that there might be a trace of that email, and it could do that for maybe 1,000 emails, and then you get 20 of them at once. You can actually get a ton of emails which you might have paid 500 to $1,000 before. And you can actually get a small entrepreneur running a campaign with no money and no budget at a fraction of the cost using Codex subagents as opposed to paying a very expensive data provider.
Wow. So definitely something to keep an eye on as people are building these solutions and thinking about it. So you're obviously an expert in a lot of really interesting areas, and we could talk all day, but I got to be mindful of your time. But before I let you go, like really give us the pitch. Like who does Revenue Flow work with? How exactly do you help them?
Yeah, great question. So we work with businesses who have an established funnel and are basically looking to drive traffic to a funnel. We're a no retainer model, outcome based first on a kind of paper MQL or paper SQL basis. And we've got strategic advisory work down the line as well, if it's much more bespoke. But if you want a partner who's outcomes first with no upfront fixed costs, then we're the people to partner with. And if you've already got an established funnel as well, then reach out.
And what's the best way to get in touch? How do we engage?
Yeah, so on our website, revenueflow.com, you'll see a lot of resources and case studies and different bits of advice that you can learn about. We've got a YouTube channel as well. And also on LinkedIn, you can find me at Ben Carden. That's BenCarden.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience did as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate it. And it was a pleasure being on the show.
Talk to you soon.
Mark, thanks.
Thank you for joining this episode of the B2B Growth Blueprint podcast. We hope you've gained insights to grow your business. If you enjoyed this discussion, please rate, comment, like on your favorite platform, and share to others who will find it useful. Do you know a CEO, founder, or leader at an early stage B2B services, tech, or SaaS company who would like to be a guest and share their story? Send us a note. Let's schedule a conversation.